The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this show belong solely to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate and not that of Keller Williams TCI or any of its affiliates. Any action you take upon the information provided on this show is strictly at your own risk, and Let's Talk TCI Real Estate guests or hosts will not be liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of the material. I am not an investment advisor, broker, or dealer. A pleasant good Thursday afternoon, one and all. Welcome to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. As always, I ask you to please share the page, like the page, call any of your friends, let them know we are on live. Today we will be speaking about vacation villa management, and we have an exciting guest with us today. So please use a few minutes to tag anyone who you know would be interested in this conversation today. Before we get started, as always, I would like to give a shout out to my guest from last week, Miss Vernice. Thank you once again for joining us on Let's Talk TCI Real Estate, Vernice. Thank you for sharing your testimony about the purchasing process. We did receive a lot of feedback from it, so the information you shared, it was invaluable. I think it actually, some of the things you did say about getting a real estate attorney, I've heard that phrase a few times this week because of the conversation. So your message was delivered, and I think it actually was a very good testament of the purchasing process in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So again, anyone who are listening, please share, like the page. Thank you to those who have followed me every week, Thursday. And we also want to welcome all those who are listening for the first time to this show, which is about real estate, all things real estate. Anything about real estate that you would like to know, any topic you would like for us to cover, please feel free to share it in the comments. Also today, just as a reminder, if you have any questions for our guest panelists, please do so in the comment section. And if for any reason we miss your questions, we will always go over the show, get those questions answered, and we can also forward them to the respective person as it should get to. So without any further delay, I am happy to have with me Mr. Williams, and I'm going to give you this opportunity to please introduce yourself.
Hey, Vernica. Thanks for having me on. My name is Claudius Williams. I'm a villa specialist with Island Escapes. Now, Island Escapes has been open for since 2011. So the math is that's about 9 years, plus or minus. And essentially, we're a full-service property management company. We offer essentially everything from booking to taking care of the home to maintenance, essentially everything. So thanks again for having me on.
You're welcome. So you said in a nutshell, you offer from booking. Could you give a little bit more specifics as to what your company offers, just so we have a bit of more of a breakdown?
Yeah, so we are a full-service property management company. So we offer a lot of services, essentially everything involved in managing the home. And oftentimes a home is managed very much like a hotel. So each property, think of it as its own hotel. So we have reservations, we have maintenance, we do bookings, we also do guest care. And later on in this, we'll go through actually the process of booking someone that'll give you a little bit more of a broader understanding of what we do. But we essentially handle everything that's involved with reservations right down to making sure that the guests have a wonderful stay.
Okay, thank you. So there are a lot of property management companies in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So could you explain to us what makes a good property management company?
Well, it really does depend on who you ask. And you're asking me. So in my opinion, what makes a good property management company is often flexibility. It's a company that can do just about anything, but depending on what your goals are, can tailor that product or tailor that service to exactly what you need. As an example, there are people who just want us to take care of their houses. They don't necessarily want us to rent it out. So we can do something like that. But then on the other hand, there are people who are just like, you know what? I'm not coming down. I need to make money. I think a good property management company or good vacation rental company is one that can offer you all the services, but is also very flexible in how they offer those services.
Okay. I just want to pause. Sorry, I just want to pause quickly for a minute. If you see me pause, my internet connection is in and out. So
no
please, excuse me if you see me pause for too long and I don't say anything. Yeah. All right.
Also, if I'm yapping and you can't hear anything, just wave hand.
No, we like persons who talk a lot on the show because we want to get as much information as possible. And if I don't ask the right questions, then you will at least give the right answers in terms of what we need to hear. So,
Sounds good.
Okay. So I'll just say this. For anyone who has purchased property, right, whether it be a resident or a non-resident, can you tell us why is it beneficial for them to hire a management team instead of them trying to do it on their own in regards to short-term rental management?
Okay. So two very different products, right? So for somebody who is not here, so a non-resident, oftentimes we'll have homeowners that are very savvy, very tech savvy, and they want to do the bookings themselves. And again, this comes down to the flexibility. In general, it helps to have somebody on the island who understands business in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Not just because it's not just about paying bills. Oftentimes it's about interacting with vendors, interacting with maintenance people. You need somebody who has the right relationships, who can interact effectively with those people. One of the things, and you can ask any expat who's like maybe a Canadian who lives here or an American who lives here, oftentimes very simple things can be very complicated if you don't have the right relationship with certain people. And so it's very important that you have somebody who's on the ground who understands that. Now, that being said, there are homeowners who live on island and they're like, you know what, we could do it ourselves. Generally speaking, it takes about maybe one call at 2 a.m. for like more ice, and right away they're like, you know what, we need a property manager. So for people who live here, oftentimes it's a convenience thing, in that they may not just want to deal with it. And again, if they wanted to handle their own bookings, that's fine. They need somebody to just do the grounds, that's fine. Obviously, we prefer to do the whole thing. But for people who live on island, like I said, usually it's like one midnight call, wake up out of the bed with like, you know, I don't know, the sound system isn't loud enough, or, you know, we need more ice or something like that. And then they're like, you know what, I'm going to let somebody else handle this.
Okay. And in talking about that one midnight call, I will ask, what are some of the challenges as a property manager that you face then?
Well, there's that, right? Also, keep in mind as property managers, we will have a staff, but we'll also have people that we work with on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. For example, there's certain people that I work with who I know that if there's a leaky toilet or a leaky faucet in the middle of the night, you know, if I pick up the phone, they'll actually answer. And that's through just experience of doing business here long enough to have the right people who are actually kind of loyal to what we do. Challenges, one of the biggest challenges I've found is handling, because yes, we are paradise and it's bright and sunny and fantastic almost all year round, until it's 2 days out and you got a hurricane threatening. In those types of situations, oftentimes if you're here, it's difficult enough as an individual to get your own home ready. Now add 12, now add 15, now add 20. It can be very challenging to make sure that all those homes are secured and all those homes are properly, you know, taken care of before an actual storm hits. Again, that's why it helps to have a good property manager with a good team who's gonna, you know, get out and make that happen. Also, keeping in mind, usually the phone's ringing off the hook at the same time. Right? So everybody wants to know, you know, what's the status of my investment? Is everything okay? Or, you know, are you still there? So it's having somebody from a property management context. Some of the challenges are just around, in my opinion, some of the biggest challenges I've had have been around like storm prep and that type of stuff. Anything other than that is usually just personality. Just finding the right relationship with the right homeowner, as well as oftentimes with renters, it's managing expectations. And some of the things that pop up is renters will get here and they'll be like, okay, where's the nightclub? And why is everything closed at 10 o'clock? You know what I mean? So you have to kind of, okay, or like, going shopping, supermarket, can we pop by Walmart and maybe pick up some groceries, or Publix or something like that? It's not, things can be more expensive here. Some things maybe aren't available. So oftentimes it's just managing expectations.
So basically this ideal job that a lot of people want to get into does have a number of challenges that they should consider before they take that plunge.
Yeah, usually for people who are like, oh yeah, I'm going to get into property management. It's real fun. We just hang out in really nice houses all the time. They can actually come and do like an apprenticeship. They can work alongside of one of our property managers for like a couple of days. Most of them are just like, you know what? No.
Because you said apprenticeship, is that something your company would allow?
Well, I mean, just individually. I mean, we're always, especially when things are booming, we're always looking for like, people to help out, other property managers. So because we are growing very quickly. So, we're always looking for people to help. So, oftentimes, and I've had managers who work with us before who, it's good. But then, like I said, you get those calls in the middle of the night. Or, I don't know, backed up toilet and plumbers aren't answering their phones. Oftentimes you have to really dig in and get the work done. That's not always a glamorous job. Let me say that.
I mean, going back just a little bit, because you were talking about plumbers, etc. One of the good things about using someone as a property manager instead of doing it yourself, you guys already have all the specialists, on call as a part of your team. Like I believe you mentioned that earlier, because Absolutely. Sometimes it's so difficult, even though you have persons in those fields out there, sometimes it's difficult to get someone who's going to be on call at the right time when it's needed in those hours of the morning or night when persons are actually supposed to be home and not on a 9 to 5.
Exactly. Exactly. And obviously doing business here as long as we have, we've kind of, I don't want to say accumulated, but we built relationships with kind of the people that we know we can kind of count on.
Right.
You know what I mean? For example, we talked about like the storm. There aren't a lot of carpenters who are going to leave their home and come out and help you out. You know what I mean? So having certain people, kind of people that you work with regularly, although they may be independent contractors, they may own their own business, but we have that relationship to be able to count on them when we need them.
That's good. Yeah. So walk us through the process from booking to actually arriving on island. How does that work with a short-term rental process?
Okay, so let's say Vernica wants to go on vacation, right? Vernica lives in Italy, or let's say Vernica lives in Canada. It's getting a little chilly.
Yes.
And she's looking to go to paradise for a week.
Yes.
So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to reach out to one of our villa specialists or our reservation specialists. And you can visit us online at www.islandescapestci.com. You're going to want to, you can take a look through the villas, but the search really starts when you give us the information that we need. For the most part, number of guests in the group, your dates, arrival and departure dates, as well as any, like if you have a budget or anything like that. Oftentimes, if somebody's looking for a 3-bedroom beachfront will be very different than a 3-bedroom, maybe one lot back, right? So if someone's like, okay, well, I want a 3-bedroom for a week. I don't want to spend any more than $2,000 for the week. Right away, that tells me, okay, you're probably not going to be beachfront on Grace Bay, right? So the budget gives us a good understanding of where you would essentially fit there. So we've got the dates, we've got the number of guests in the group, we've got the budgets. Usually I'll ask what people are interested in doing while they're here, because that'll give me a good idea as to where they would kind of fit in the most. For example, kite surfing has become very popular here. So for people who are like, hey, listen, we're here to kite surf. There's 3 of us, we want to spend this much. I won't probably look for a house all the way down in Chalk Sound. I'll probably stick up in the Grace Bay or maybe the Long Bay area, Or if somebody's coming to play golf, I'm not going to put them down towards Amanera. You know what I mean? So once we have kind of those 4 bits of information, what we'll do is we'll go through our catalog and look for kind of the right villas. We usually pick 3 to 5 properties just to be able to offer. Now, there are some limiting factors. If someone's looking for like a last minute reservation for Christmas, there may only be 1 home available. But generally speaking, someone's booking maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 months out. We'll offer them 3 to 5 properties. And from there, they'll essentially go through, look at the bedding configuration on our website. We've got floor plans, everything like that. Ask the relevant questions, like pricing, cancellation policy, all that type of stuff. And once they're ready to book, what we do is we send them a booking contract. Okay? They complete that, they forward it back, we run the card, we send them a confirmation, and they're good to go. So that is essentially the booking process. Okay? The next step is they buy their tickets, they rent their cars, and we give them recommendations for all this stuff. If they want to get a private chef, they want to do horseback riding, they want to go out on a boat tour with like Talbot's Adventures or something like that, we point them in the right direction.
So basically that's a part of your services, like a concierge service?
Well, there's 2 parts to that. We can do the concierge service, or we just give them options. Okay. Right? Some people prefer to kind of plan their own trip. For example, with chef services, I usually tend to stay away from booking a chef for someone. And the reason being is because oftentimes when you're booking a chef, there's very specific, like allergy information. Different people have different tastes and different requirements. So what I usually tend to do is give them a list of chefs. They can go to the websites and kind of pick the ones that fit their own needs. And then they're communicating directly with that chef to make sure that, that everybody's good. You know what I mean? Yes. The last thing you want is, I'm helping them out and I'm telling them, they'll love lobster. Maybe they're allergic to shellfish and then they end up with a big lobster. You know what I mean? So I tend to stay away from specifically the chef services, but it can go either way. Some people prefer, if they're booking a self-catered villa, some people prefer to just kind of handle that themselves, and that's fine as well. Okay. All right. So now they've paid and they bought their tickets and they have their rent-a-car and they got a good idea of what they're doing while they're here. They get on a plane. So now, and this is something we can kind of talk more about or talk less about, but traditionally what we would do was meet them at the airport and then they would follow us to the house for a full orientation. And with kind of what's been happening with COVID and certain restrictions around us actually being at the airport, we've actually scaled that back a bit. So guests will receive essentially an arrival package that'll have obviously the villa address, map directions to the home, as well as how to get inside, keys, codes, Wi-Fi codes, the basics. Okay. Once they get to the house, they'll give us a call. We'll pop by just for a quick orientation. Of course, keeping in mind that we're going to maintain our 6 feet, we're going to have our masks on and stay safe. But we walk them through the house. We show them where the washing machine is, how to use TVs, because often most TVs here have 2 remotes, whereas in the States, maybe they're only used to having 1. Any questions?
Some of these modern homes actually have a lot of technology associated with it these days. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so oftentimes they may need a brief refresher course just on how things work. Okay. And usually from there, they're good to go. During that time, during that orientation, we'll usually schedule, most 1-week stays will include a mid-stay clean. Okay. But if guests want daily maid service, for example, we'll schedule that for them. But during that orientation, it's our time to kind of, orient them to the home, answer any questions they may have about the house, the island, amenities, the community. And if they haven't booked certain things, we can answer those questions there as well, kind of point them in the right direction. But the goal is just to get them comfortable in the home. And from there, I take a step back and let them enjoy their vacation. Now, while guests are here, I'm on call. So part of that orientation is making sure that they have my cell phone number. So if anything comes up, they ring me. They need more ice. Please don't call if you need more ice. But anyway, whatever. I'm on call while they're here to answer, legitimate queries.
With things like legitimate when you're on vacation.
Sorry?
Every query is legitimate when you're on vacation.
This is true. This is true. This is true. Oftentimes, though, it's like,
don't purchase yourself. Be careful.
You get it. You get it. So, I mean, yeah, essentially I'm on call for the duration of the stay. So if they have any questions, or if there's anything at the house that maybe I didn't get to answer when I was doing the orientation, or, something unique pops up, like maybe, maybe there's a football game on this weekend, we don't get that channel. Can you up our TV package? Or, the internet's a little bit slow, I got to do a Zoom call with Vernica a little bit later. Can you up our internet package? We can do all that kind of stuff on the fly. And like I said, answer any questions. We've had situations where, for example, guests will be driving around and they won't have any idea where they are. I love those calls. So oftentimes they'll just be traveling around the island and they'll call me and say, hey, we can't find the house. Mind you, they've been here for a couple of days. We got lost. Well, what do you see?
Right.
Well, there's a goat in the road. There's no street sign here. Things like that. So it's usually pretty fun to kind of figure out where they are and then go get them and bring them back. So, yeah.
So you're basically their assistant while they're here, their personal assistant, if you may say.
Yeah, I guess. I'm their assistant on call while they're here. Right. Usually most times it's just something to do with the house. Most times it's like, hey, we can't get certain channels on the TV, or the internet's running a little slow, or I don't know, right. Or it's raining. Should we bring the umbrellas in? That type of stuff. So most times it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, so I'm on call for the duration of their stay. And then at the end of the stay, usually we just come in for a checkout, walk through, make sure like they haven't kind of partied too much, haven't, taken too much advantage of the place. And then we just get them to sign and they check out. And so that is essentially a vacation without the vacation, but the business of a reservation for a short-term rental.
Okay. So, Yep, sounds good to me. So what happens, just a question about your cancellation policy. You talked about hurricanes, right? And a lot of times we know that vacation renters, they book in advance, far in advance. Yep. What happens in the event that, say, for instance, there's a hurricane during the time of their stay? How do you accommodate your vacation rental village?
Generally speaking, usually when there's a hurricane tracking, okay, so first of all, there's something that we didn't touch on earlier on was travel insurance.
Right.
Okay. Always recommend travel insurance. But generally speaking, when a hurricane is threatening, it's within a couple days of a stay. Mm-hmm. So they pass the cancellation period, right? Mm-hmm. Usually you'll have either a 60, more recently, lately, it's been a 30-day cancellation period because people want more flexibility due to maybe travel restrictions with COVID or whatnot.
Right.
But for the most part, if it's a hurricane, they're already past that cancellation policy. And most of our homeowners are open to having them maybe reschedule for another week or something like that, whether it's further down on the year or, or at least a credit towards a future stay. Again, I always recommend, whether it's hurricanes or, like I said, COVID, we didn't really see this coming. I mean, there were a couple of little whispers about it on the news, but nobody really saw it coming. Right. I always recommend travel insurance, one way or the other.
Okay. So question for you now. Most times people think vacation rentals, they think about villas on the beach. Mm-hmm. Based on your experience with the short-term rentals, can you recommend what's other properties that you think would also best suit to be a vacation rental for someone?
You mean outside of
beachfront properties? Yes.
And I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. So majority of the people who come to the Turks and Caicos Islands come here for the beach.
Correct.
Right? We've been ranked number 1 in the Caribbean for beaches for, I've lost track of how long. We are spoiled in that we have gorgeous beaches here. But that doesn't mean that beachfront homes are the only things available. We do have homes that are maybe canal front, that are still on the water that will also have a pool. We do have some homes that are actually maybe 1 lot back or maybe even 2 lots back from the beach that will have a swimming pool as well. And those homes will still book well. The key to those, I found the ones that do the best with reservations are the ones that are at least near a beach access. If that makes any sense. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be right on the water, but if you can walk less than 5 minutes to the beach, then you're usually okay.
Yeah.
And the other caveat there is kind of the niche traveler. And I touched on this earlier, but the people who are traveling, who are like, you know what, I just need to get away. I want a nice house near the beach, not necessarily on the beach, but I'm going to be playing a lot of golf, or I'm going to be playing a lot of tennis, or I'm going to be doing a lot of scuba diving, or I'm going to be doing a lot of fishing or kite surfing. So those types of people, then you really can find homes. For example, if you want to steer your marketing towards fishermen, or people that like to fish, because that's maybe something you're interested in, you may want to look at something near a marina, or not far from a marina, but also close to the beach. If you are looking at traveling and doing some kite surfing, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to be looking at something more in Leeward and like the Long Bay area. And there's a lot of like exactly. And there's a lot of like off-beach properties in Long Bay that are affordable. And you're literally, you can put your kite over your shoulder and walk to the beach in less than 5 minutes. And the same goes for golfers, fishermen, that kind of stuff. So I would say, if you're from the purchaser's context, if you're looking for a home that you want to rent out short term, you're going to want to be with, at least you should try to be within walking distance. You're definitely going to want a pool. And either way, you're going to want to kind of target your marketing more towards the amenities in that community. Okay.
And because you talk about targeting the marketing towards that's part of your services as a property manager. You do that.
Well, in addition to like the reservations, we also set up the marketing.
Okay.
So there's certain, we have a community of wholesalers that we work with regularly. Of course, everybody's heard about VRBO and Airbnb. Like those are like, they've become household names lately, as well as a bunch of travel agents we work with as well. So the idea is, based on what a home has to offer, we kind of know who to target it to.
Yeah, I like what you said about working with travel agents, because for most persons, they just assume, hey, I'll throw it up on VRBO, I'll get all of the traffic. So basically, again, that's a benefit of using a property manager, because you have connections that doesn't necessarily, you're not just depending on VRBO. You have other connections, other streams of revenue in potential where persons can book the unit from.
You're absolutely right. You're tapping into a larger pool of renters.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind is, although you may have heard the names of these wholesalers, or you may have heard, they're less likely to deal with a single owner or a single, you know what I mean? Like a property manager. Yeah. And the reason being is because when somebody comes to them, they're not saying, I want to stay in Vernika's house. They're coming to say, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom house in Provo, right? So a wholesaler will maximize his chances of finding the right home by going to one of the property managers here, because we represent a pool of villas that they can kind of choose from to find the right property for them, as opposed to having a bunch of individual, maybe homeowners to reach out to. It's a daunting task. So it's definitely, having a property manager gives you access to a larger pool of renters.
Okay. Talking about pool of renters, I also want to talk about other properties. I know that you're based in Providenciales, right? If someone is interested in booking a vacation rental on one of the outer islands, especially like Grand Turk or so, do you also have connections that you can, properties, or that you can help assist with?
Yeah, a little while back, and this is kind of getting into the kind of the personal part of it, but a little while back, there was a lot of interest happening in North Caicos.
Okay.
And then we had people popping up in North Caicos. So I do know people in North Caicos, and I have worked with people over there that I would feel comfortable sending, for example, to like Dragon Key, Mujin Harbor, or something like that. But for the most part, we don't represent any properties in North, Middle, Grand Turk, South. Okay. Generally speaking, the large majority, in like 99% of the people who come to us based on how we market our properties, are looking for a vacation in Providenciales.
Okay, that's fair enough.
And it's like, if you go to Google, for example, and you're searching beach cottage in Grand Turk,
yeah,
Island Escapes won't come up. because we don't represent any ourselves.
Yeah, because you're marketing where you are on the ground, where you can service your customers and make sure give them the best experience ever.
Is Providenciales, exactly.
Okay, so I'll ask also for someone who is, has purchased vacant land with anticipation of building a vacation rental villa. What are some of the things that you would suggest that they think about in the design of their home for this purpose? Because I'm sure that you've taken on properties that is not actually designed for short-term rentals. So it's always good to get that out there. So the whole goal.
So that's a little bit of a tricky one because what you're doing here, and I touched on managing expectations.
Okay.
So there will be certain situations where someone will buy a home and they will absolutely love green or absolutely love yellow, right? Those are very like invasive colors, and oftentimes people will look at it right away and just kind of move on. As far as the design features are concerned, I've found, now we represent some houses that are designed very heavy, and we represent some houses that are kind of more neutral in their design and layout. Okay. I've found in my personal experience that the houses that do better are the ones that are more neutral. Open spaces, light, a lot of natural light, and also not a lot of like maybe sharp edges for kids to get hurt on. Because let's face it, a lot of people that are traveling with a family. Okay. So again, I'm not a designer. There's a ton of great designers out there who can you just let them know that we're aiming towards doing villa rentals, if only for a portion of the year.
Yes.
And they can give you a list of like fabrics to use. For example, like Scotch guarded, certain fabrics you may not want to use, certain scratch resistant, maybe tiles, countertops, that type of stuff. One of the things I like to stay away from are, although fire pits are very popular, fire pits anywhere near the house. You know what I mean? The last thing you want is that call.
You're thinking safety. Because
Exactly. So, certain things you just want to, a lot of it may be common sense type stuff. Most people will design a home for their needs, and that will be okay. Every now and again, you get someone with a sort of very niche personality, and the home will reflect that personality. And oftentimes, it's not that we can't rent it. It's just it makes it a little bit more difficult to rent that property. Because you're looking for a very specific type of customer.
Yeah. No, the reason I asked that because I was hoping to hear things more like open concept, the contemporary look or the lighting, etc., just to see what some of the comments that travelers do, suggest when they're renting a unit.
As I mentioned,
my words today.
Yeah, I get it. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of the houses that do better tend to be more neutral palettes, open concept, clean lines, and more spacious. A lot of natural light. Okay. Now, some things that a property manager will tell you when you're developing, especially if you're starting from the ground up, actually, you know what? Even if you're retrofitting a home, even if you bought a home and you're gonna kind of change the floor plan or whatever, one of the biggest utilities in the Turks and Caicos is power. Fortis and most times Fortis is going to be your largest bill. Right. So energy efficient appliances, inverter air conditioners, tankless water heaters, LED lighting as much as possible. Those are just some of the things that you can kind of look at, not only to make it more efficient and kind of make it look more modern, because a lot of those things do look more modern, but it'll save you a lot of money in the long run. Okay. It'll save you a lot of money. And although, for example, the last thing you want to run into is guests come and stay for a week and they leave you with a $1,500 or $2,000 power bill. So energy efficiency is a big thing.
Is solar panel big on the list for the newer homes now then?
Solar panels will be more popular when it comes to things like pool heating. Okay. Right? Things that can be like heavy draws. Solar panels will be more popular there. Now, there are a lot of new products coming online. And I know that they've already kind of come on. They're very big. They're a very big deal in the States, and they're starting to come online in Provo. But people are starting to look at things like the power walls.
Okay.
like the Tesla Powerwalls, which is essentially like a battery backup that can also act as almost like a energy efficient generator in times when maybe the power is off due to a storm or something like that. So people are looking at a lot of these kind of more green technologies to be able to make their home, to at least kind of subsidize some of the cost of operation. Okay. Solar lighting definitely on the outdoors. Solar lighting definitely like in the garden, in the landscaping. I don't personally manage any homes that have solar panels to be able to operate the interior of the home, but I can't imagine it's going to be that much longer before people start integrating those technologies. I already see it coming down the pipeline.
Definitely it is, yes.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. Well, I have a lot of questions, but just for the audience.
That's why I'm here.
What is the average budget for short-term rental? If someone who wants to rent short-term, what type of budget should they be looking at?
What is the average budget?
That's the question, yes.
Okay, so that's an interesting one, because we have houses that are run from like $2,000 a week to $300,000 a week. Okay, so there's definitely, depending on when you're traveling, it really does depend on what you want. Yes. One of the things that people often think is when they see, for example, the average person, they're going online and they see vacation villa, they may think, I don't know, this is, with the advent of Airbnb and VRBO, they're kind of more mainstream, but back in the day, I know people would be like, oh, well, it's a villa, I can't afford it, it's too expensive, right? But that being said, you can get a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom for $3,000 a week. That'll sleep 6 people, okay?
That's a good price.
Yeah, so, but what I'm saying is oftentimes you have to actually kind of crunch the math. And if, for example, if we pull out our calculators and look like, okay, 6 people, right, $3,000 a week, then all of a sudden you end up paying like $150 to $200 a night for safety, your own pool, your own kitchen. You determine your amount of exposure, right? So with the privacy, the exclusivity, it really does make sense to go the villa route. Even like once you break it down, one of the things, and I admit, one of the things that kind of is a little different in the villa rental market versus the hotel market is the way that we price, right? And although you'll see a number that says, oh, well, $10,000 a week, right? Somebody may like, oh, well, that's a lot of money. Well, that type of villa will also sleep 10 people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas a hotel they'll advertise it as $250 a night, right? Per person. And once you add that up, it ends up, it may end up to be, and actually $250 a night, let's be honest, for a hotel in Provo is very cheap. Yeah. A lot of them more than $1,000 and up, for kind of some of the nicer ones on the beach. So I'm
glad you mentioned that, because like you said, most times you are looking at it and you get sometimes turned off saying, hey, that's too expensive. But then if you really digest it and break it down and compare it, you realize it's the same thing. You're just saying in a different way.
It's a lot more affordable. Yeah, absolutely. And then also thinking about what you're getting. Okay, you're not going to have to fight with kids to get into the pool and cool off, right? Unless they're your kid, right? You're not going to have to wait in line for dinner because your kitchen is right there. You know what I mean? You can you can determine. It's much more of a catered, personalized vacation, as opposed to being kind of run through the mill. You know what I mean? Or having to stand in line at a restaurant. If you decide you don't want to eat out, but you're still hungry, you can have a chef come to your home and put on a spread. And oftentimes these days, chefs bring a bartender, and some of them will even schedule a DJ for how much, depending on what you want. A chef can turn into like a really nice night in.
Yeah.
So,
and I think these properties are even more ideal for the COVID situation because you're in a personalized space.
Absolutely.
At a more
we haven't even touched on that yet. So not tricky, but some of the things that are stopping people from traveling, what we try to do is we try to drill down, well, how do we make sure that people are safe, people are comfortable, and then they can actually get here, okay? For vacation villas, these days, if you're concerned about exposure, if you're concerned about, being in contact with people you don't know, being in contact with strangers, the villa rental is definitely the way to go. Not only in most cases is it more affordable, but it offers you essentially a home away from home.
Correct.
Right? Like I said, you're not going to be hanging out at the pool with, random people walking by and coughing. You know what I mean? It's your family.
Yes.
Your group transplanted in paradise. So in those definitely in this new kind of industry that we're looking at, and if I'm honest, I don't see this thing being cured tomorrow and everything's done and we're good to go. Yeah. I think the businesses that are gonna make it are the ones that are gonna be able to adapt to the new environment, and oftentimes the new legislation, the new requirements. For example, my friend Kendrick Neely over at the health department, being able to adapt to a lot of these new requirements, but still offer a safe, clean environment for travelers to come is really going to be the way of the future. Those are the people that I think that are really going to do well going forward.
Yeah, I know a few persons who have decided to take vacation, and instead of going the hotel route, they have tapped into renting a villa. So because they feel more safe doing that. And talking about COVID, generally speaking, how do you say the rental market is since COVID-19?
So if you were to do an income statement from March to September, so quarter one and quarter two, there's going to be a lot of red, right? Yeah. Essentially, I think just like every other jurisdiction, as of like the middle of March, everything stopped.
Yeah.
As of the middle of March, everything essentially stopped. Now, usually, just to kind of take a look at the bigger picture, in election years are usually a little bit soft as far as rentals are concerned to begin with.
Right.
Okay. People usually want to kind of see which way, they're thinking about the future of the country, and specifically relating to the United States. They're thinking about that, and they don't necessarily think about their vacation right away. They may start to, but they're not committed just yet. Right. So this year is a bit unique because it is an election year, and two, you have a lot of very concerned travelers. We're still getting the inquiries. People are still asking all the right questions. It's just that when it's time to actually book down, they're a little skittish these days. We still have reservations coming in, but it's not the same amount that we would have had in a regular year. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But that being said, one of the good things, if there is a sunny side to this, is a lot of the people that were booked for 2020, instead of canceling, actually looked to reschedule in 2021. Yeah. And so the good thing is that we've got our requirements in place. We have a process, and we've been kind of fine-tuning this process through the slow season, so that when the busy season does come, we can handle what I expect to be an influx of travelers. That being said, this 2021 looks to be a good year. For us on the ground, it's more about just kind of stretching it out and just making it to December. October is very slow. I've got a couple coming in October. We've got a few in November, but then it really starts to kind of ramp up coming into the season. So I think we've done a good job of changing the way that we do business. I think we've done a good job of looking at how we approach the traveler and how we can change. Oftentimes it's just little things you got to change to make, especially when it comes to villas, right? For the most part, there are small tweaks in the way that you maybe meet and greet, and the way you do your orientation, and also the types of things you put in the villa. There's small tweaks, and you're still open for business. You know what I mean? You can still cater to these groups.
Based on what you said, two things I think I gathered from it that I want to touch base on. Basically, it tells me that, in my opinion, you could correct me if I'm wrong, that there still is a market for vacation rental villas in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Absolutely.
And also, even though you talked about some of the statements may have been in the red at this season, I can understand that because a vacation rental also goes hand in hand with real estate. And it's the same thing because, like you say, COVID-19 is new to everyone. So a lot of people are just threading carefully just to make sure that they're making the right choice at this time. Also, like you say, the American election, that because we have a lot of our guests come from America, people are waiting to see what happens. People are, that's a big factor right now. So you I can expect to hear something like, you know, some of those numbers may be in the red, but it's positive and it is uplifting to hear that persons are not just canceling, but they are actually rebooking for 2021 because we want to make sure that they are safe and that everything is in order.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it gives us time to get it together, get our processes, get our procedures together, get our airport reopened safely, so we can cater to customers. So yeah, absolutely.
And I feel that, like you say, I mean, also once, like you say, we get our act together, making sure the process for visitors coming into the island, I think that's going to make a big difference when it comes to the numbers in terms of guest vacation rental.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right there.
Okay. So we're going to, I mean, you know, I have 1 or 2 questions, but we're going to be wrapping up because we're getting to the 45-minute mark. Trust me, there's a lot of questions in my head still. I want to ask you to, one question I normally get from persons, they want to understand from a property management standpoint, what's the process in terms of registration with the TCIG? Are there these villas, do they need to have like a specific license to operate as a vacation rental? Please explain that for the listening audience.
Okay. Just to kind of keep it under the 45 minutes, because I can be long-winded with that type of stuff. But real briefly, there's a number of inspections that have to be done. The health department inspection, which these days is a little bit more involved than it used to be before. Fire safety inspection. And you're going to get approval from the health department, approval from fire and safety, as well as my friend Donjay over there at the tourist board. He's going to come by and he's going to take a look at the property as well, just to make sure that you've got like the basics, like pool markers and the place is kept well and kept clean for the most part. You can reach out to either of those departments to be able to get a more comprehensive checklist of what is required. But once you have essentially those 3 things, you complete an application form for business license. You deliver that to the business license or revenue control downtown. And oftentimes this is something a property manager would do for you for a fee.
That was the other thing I was going to ask. That's something as a property manager.
We do that. Yeah, we do that.
Doesn't need that headache. They can just entrust it.
Either you can have us do it for a fee, or you can have a lawyer do it for a fee. There really are a lot of people here that can kind of handle that for you. You apply for the business license, and then you apply for a tax ID number to be able to remit your 12% accommodation tax. And that's essentially it. Like I said, in a nutshell, without running on too long, that's essentially it. It's
that's
real.
required for every property.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. One of the things I wouldn't recommend is circumventing that, because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Okay. Yeah.
Required for every property.
Yes. No, we like to go the right route. And that's why I'm asking a specialist, so we can get this information clear in the public's domain.
So now there is one note on something that's changed recently. Previously, you only needed the tourist board inspections for homes that were 4 bedrooms or more, but they are in the process of changing that. Okay. Especially this year there's a new system called the TCI Assured, which is something that I recommend every homeowner go out and get. They're inspecting every property now. So if it's a 1 bedroom, it's a 2 bedroom, it's a pool house or whatever you're renting, go get your inspection.
Okay. All right. And I will also ask, of course, a lot of questions I came up with, but perhaps I may have missed something out. If you were to say, what are some important points that anyone who's looking to, say, place their home in with a short-term management company, or anyone who is thinking vacation rental, what are some of the points you would put to the forefront that they should know upfront?
Upfront, I think it's important to, especially when you're initiating the communications with a new property manager, just be clear about what your goals are, if that makes any sense. So, for example, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but most property management companies today will be full service, will be full suite. So it's very clear to make sure, it's very important to make clear that, okay, well, I'll be using the home. For example, some homeowners will want to use the home for a couple of months out of the year. Some homeowners don't wish to. There are other homeowners who don't wish to rent at all. The idea is to be able to make sure that the property manager understands that so that they can tailor their service to meet your specific needs. Again, oftentimes, not that often, usually pretty good at sussing it out, but there are homeowners who are just like, you know what? We're going to be down here 6 months out of the year. And that 6 months happens to be November to like June. So that's our peak season. So they may want to pick up one or two here or there, but they don't necessarily want to rent it a lot. Right. Just having that conversation earlier on can kind of smooth out any kind of miscommunications later on. I think that's essentially it. Now, if I've missed anything, or if I've if there's any questions that pop up or anything like that, again, I gave you my website, www.islandescapestci.com. Guests can also reach me at Claudius, Claudius, at islandescapestci.com. If you have any questions, any specific questions about property management, or if you're just looking to get into building a home and you want a more specific design, you have more specific design questions you want to ask, I'm available. So if anything comes up later, I'm around to answer those questions.
Thank you. That was going to be the next question I asked, to give you information, but thanks. See, you're in my mind.
Sounds good. Good. Thanks for having me on, Bernica. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. Persons have asked me about the villa management, short-term side of real estate. And so I think it was a topic that we needed to discuss on here today, because of course, we have a lot of second home buyers, and most times the intention is to rent as a vacation rental opportunity. Right. And so I think this is such an important conversation today, and definitely, yes.
Gotcha.
I appreciate you coming on, and thank you for giving your information. Please reach out to Claudius for all your property management needs, questions, and you know what? He is a great person. He is a vacation rental specialist. Yes. And I've had one or two customers who have complimented you and your services. And so continue doing a great job.
Thank you very much, Bernica. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And just want to close out by saying thank you once again to all those who have listened in. Please stop being afraid to send your questions. I've had a few persons who have sent me questions after the show, and my response is always, there is no question that is too small or too big. There's no question that is not in line with what we're talking about. Send it through, and definitely if we can answer it, we will answer it on your behalf. And if you want to be anonymous when you ask the questions, please feel free to email the person directly. Okay, so please, we look forward to your questions and your comments. And I always say also, your questions may help someone else who don't know the ideal question to ask. And so you may be helping someone else to get those questions go through. So have a great afternoon. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you, Claudius, for being with us. And until next week, as I always say, stay safe and remain blessed. I don't know what's going on today. I've been chewing up on my words. Have a great afternoon.
Take care. You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.